At 11:30 p.m. on December 2nd, 1984, a maintenance worker at a pesticide plant in Bhopal, India, noticed something wrong with storage tank 6-1. Oh, the pressure gauge was rising, he told his supervisor. His supervisor told him it was normal. An hour later, 40 tons of methyl isocyanate gas, one of the most toxic substances produced at industrial scale, began leaking into the air above a sleeping city of 900,000 people. Methyl isocyanate does not smell like danger. It smells like fresh cut grass. People woke up. They thought it was pleasant. Then their eyes began to burn. Then their lungs began to fill. Then they ran. The plant's emergency siren had been switched off weeks earlier to avoid alarming local residents during routine maintenance. There was no warning. There was no evacuation. There was no plan. In the streets of Bhopal, people ran without knowing which direction was away from the gas, because the gas was everywhere. By morning, the streets looked like this: bodies of people who had fallen mid-run. Animals, cows, dogs, birds, dead in the roads, children who had not woken up at all. 20,000 people were killed. 500,000 were permanently injured. The plant was owned by an American company. And the story of what happened next is the reason this video exists. Welcome back to Guilty and Free. The Bhopal disaster. On the night of December 2nd to 3rd, 1984, is the worst industrial disaster in human history. More people died in a single night than in the entire Chernobyl disaster. More people were permanently injured than in any peacetime industrial incident on record. And the American company that owned the plant, Union Carbide Corporation, knew for years before the disaster that the plant was unsafe. There is a document that proves it. It was written in 1982, 2 years before the disaster. A Union Carbide safety audit team visited the Bhopal plant and produced a report. The report identified a potential for release of toxic materials from the MIC storage tanks. It identified inadequate safety systems. It identified insufficient staffing for emergency response. The report was sent to Union Carbide's headquarters in Danbury, Connecticut. The recommendations were not implemented. The report was filed. 2 years later, 40 tons of the material the report warned about leaked into a sleeping city. This is not negligence. This is a choice. To understand what happened at Bhopal, you need to understand one thing about how Union Carbide built its plant there. The Bhopal plant was not built to American safety standards. It was built to a reduced standard, specifically adapted for the Indian operation that Union Carbide's own engineers had flagged as inadequate. The same pesticide, 7, was manufactured at a Union Carbide plant in Institute, West Virginia. The American plant had computerized safety systems, refrigeration units to keep the MIC storage tanks cold, backup gas scrubbers, multiple redundant fail-safes. The Bhopal plant had none of these. The refrigeration unit for the MIC tanks had been shut down 5 months before the disaster to save money. The gas scrubber, designed to neutralize any leaking MIC, was under maintenance and not operational on the night of the disaster. The flare tower, a backup system designed to burn off escaping gas, was also not operational. 3 separate safety systems, all non-operational, on the same night. And the siren, the one warning system available to the public, had been switched off because the noise disturbed the neighbors. At 12:40 a.m. on December 3rd, a shift supervisor at the plant named Suman Day realized what was happening. The temperature and pressure readings on tank 610 had gone beyond anything the instruments could measure. He gave the order to run. The plant's workers ran in one direction. The gas went in the other. That is the only reason any of them survived. In the city beyond the plant walls, nobody knew what was happening or what to do. There were no evacuation routes. There were no emergency instructions. There was no antidote stockpiled at local hospitals. Doctors at the nearest hospital had never been told that the plant next door stored 40 tons of methyl isocyanate. By law, Union Carbide was supposed to have informed local authorities about the nature of the chemicals stored at the plant. They had not done so. The hospitals treating hundreds of people did not know what substance had harmed them. They were treating symptoms: the burning eyes, the foaming mouths, the failing lungs, without knowing the cause. The antidote for methyl isocyanate exposure is sodium thiosulfate. Union Carbide's medical team in Bhopal initially told local doctors that sodium thiosulfate was ineffective. This was contested. Some doctors administered it anyway. The patients who received it survived at higher rates. The patients who did not, because Union Carbide's team had told their doctors not to use it, had worse outcomes. There are researchers who believe this decision cost additional lives. There has been no accounting for it. When news of the disaster reached Warren Anderson, the chief executive officer of Union Carbide Corporation, he was in Connecticut. It was the middle of the night. By morning, he had made a decision that would define how history records this disaster. He flew to India, not because he had to. He chose to go. He said he felt a moral responsibility. When Warren Anderson landed in Bhopal on December 7, 1984, 4 days after the disaster, he was arrested. Not by international warrant, by local Indian authorities. He was taken to a government guest house. He was charged with culpable homicide. His bail was set: $2,100 for the deaths of 20,000 people. $2,100. He paid it within hours. And then, under circumstances that have never been fully explained, he was escorted to the airport by Indian state government officials and allowed to board a private plane. He flew home to Connecticut. He never went back. India issued a warrant for his arrest. India requested his extradition. They requested it again, and again, and again. 39 times over the following decades, India formally requested the extradition of Warren Anderson to face trial for the deaths of 20,000 people. The United States government refused every request, every single one. Their legal position: that Indian courts did not have adequate jurisdiction over an American citizen. Warren Anderson lived in Connecticut and then in Florida. He died on September 29, 2014. He was 92 years old. He died in his bed. He was never tried. In 1989, 5 years after the disaster, Union Carbide settled with the Indian government. The settlement amount was $470 million. Before you hear what comes next, hold that number. $470 million. It sounds significant. Now, divide it. At the time of settlement, the Indian government estimated 3,000 immediate deaths. Later research revised the death toll to between 15,000 and 20,000. 500,000 people were injured. $470 million. Divided across 20,000 dead, 500,000 injured, and hundreds of thousands more living with long-term health effects. The average compensation paid to the families of the dead, approximately $2,200 for a death. $2,200, the same amount Warren Anderson paid to be released from custody in the hours after his arrest. His bail, and the value placed on a life by the settlement were the same number. There is something about the Bhopal story that most people who know the disaster do not know. The plant is still there, not operating, but standing. The Union Carbide plant in Bhopal, the site of the worst industrial disaster in human history, has never been fully cleaned up. Soil samples taken from the site in the decades after the disaster show contamination with heavy metals, pesticide residues, and other toxic chemicals at levels significantly above safe limits. The contamination has leached into the groundwater beneath the site. The groundwater is used by communities living near the plant. The legal responsibility for cleaning up the site has been disputed for 40 years. Union Carbide was acquired by Dow Chemical in 2001. Dow Chemical merged with DuPont in 2017. The resulting company, Dow-DuPont, later restructured as Corteva, Dow and DuPont, has maintained that it bears no liability for Union Carbide's pre-acquisition conduct. In other words, the company that owned the plant sold itself to another company. That company says it is not responsible for what happened before it bought the first company. The site sits in Bhopal, contaminating the ground, contaminating the water, with no company willing to accept the legal responsibility to clean it up. Children born near the Bhopal site in the decades after the disaster show elevated rates of birth defects. Their parents were not workers at the plant. Their parents were not alive in 1984. They are the second and third generation of Bhopal's victims, paying, in their bodies, for a disaster they were not born to witness, caused by a company that no longer legally exists, owned at the time by a man who died in his bed in Florida. In 2010, 26 years after the disaster, a Bhopal court finally delivered verdicts on 7 former Indian managers of the Union Carbide subsidiary. All 7 were convicted of causing death by negligence. Their sentences were 2 years each, the maximum sentence available under the charge they faced. 2 years for 26 years of waiting, for 20,000 dead, for 500,000 injured, for children born with birth defects 40 years later. 2 years. Most of those convicted were elderly. All of them were immediately granted bail. None of them served the 2 years. Warren Anderson, the American CEO who ran the company, who flew to India, who was released on $2,100 bail, who flew home, who was never extradited, was not among those convicted. He was never in an Indian courtroom. He was never in any courtroom. He was in Florida. Here is what happened to the people responsible for the worst industrial disaster in history. The CEO was never tried. The company paid $470 million, less than 1% of its annual revenue at the time of settlement. The site was never cleaned. The Indian managers served no prison time. And here is the detail that no other account of Bhopal quite puts in these terms. The 1982 safety audit, the document that identified the risk, that was sent to corporate headquarters in Connecticut, that was not acted upon, was written 2 years before 20,000 people died. The people who read it and filed it without acting are not in court. They are not in prison. Most of them are dead, of old age. But here is the question that Bhopal leaves permanently open. If the 1982 audit had been acted on, if the refrigeration unit had been maintained, if the scrubbers had been kept operational, if the emergency plan had been written, if the local hospitals had been told what was stored next door, would 20,000 people have died on a Tuesday night in December? We know the answer. No, they would not have. The deaths of 20,000 people were not inevitable. They were the outcome of decisions, specific decisions, made by specific people. Who knew the risk? Who chose not to act? Who went home? Who were never held to account? 20,000 dead. $470 million settlement. $2,200 per death. $2,100 bail. 39 extradition requests refused. 0 senior executives tried. They got away with it. Subscribe. New video every week. Next, in the 1990s and 2000s, 3 auditors from the world's largest accounting firm signed off for 9 consecutive years on a company whose biggest asset did not exist. The asset did not exist. The auditors signed off anyway. How? That is next week. They got away with it. Because somebody always signs off.